Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a first look at Panasonic Lumix G9II. The original G9 was announced almost 5 years ago and pretty much everybody liked it. I think that it is still one of the best cameras under $1,000. 5 years is a long time though, so the G9 can definitely use some new technology. That is exactly what the G9II brings, including the face detection autofocus system. In this video, we will take a look at the output and the feature set of the G9II. Please note that the camera that I was testing is pre-production and I only had it for a limited amount of time, so this won't be the usual in-depth review. I also don't know the price of the G9II at the moment, but there will be a link in the description. The first very positive finding is that the G9II uses Panasonic S5 II body. The only external difference is the Micro Four Thirds mount and the lack of the vent. It even fits into the S5 II cage perfectly. I think that this is currently the best camera body on the market, so I am very happy about that. It is about 13.5 cm wide. It is slightly lighter than the S5 II, so probably about 640 grams. Micro Four Thirds lenses will keep the overall size down, but we will talk about that later. Much like the base S5 II, it is a very well made camera with full magnesium frame and rubberized surface. The G9II uses a 25 megapixel Micro Four Thirds MOS sensor. The RAW files are not compatible with Lightroom yet, so the image quality part of this video will be somewhat limited. As we know, Panasonic GH6 also uses a 25 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor, so it is very likely that this is the same sensor. That would mean that it is not backside illuminated and it doesn't have dual native ISO capabilities. Importantly, it is paired with Panasonic's new processor or engine. It captures a respectable amount of detail by Micro Four Thirds standards. The base ISO on the G9II is now 100, which is a big improvement. Base ISO noise on the Micro Four Thirds was a problem in the past, but it is significantly improved here. I have mostly tested the G9II with the new Leica branded 12 to 35mm f2.8 and 9mm f1.7. In combination with those lenses, it seems that the lower base ISO really improves the image quality and it lets the whole digital imaging chain to capture more detail by improving signal to noise ratio. I have done the usual ISO testing, but I was only able to open the files in Silky Pics, which is not great. The noise is actually quite visible even at ISO 800. ISO 1600 is probably as high as I would go this time, maybe ISO 3200 if necessary. That is probably a compromise for lower base ISO and also for not using a BSI sensor. On the other hand, the dynamic range at the base ISO seems to be a lot better. I was able to recover a lot of detail from shadows even in HDR situations without introducing too much noise. That is usually not the case with Micro Four Thirds cameras. Overall, the output is pretty solid for a Micro Four Thirds system. It obviously can't compete with the S5 II in terms of detail over look or low light capabilities, but that is not the purpose of the G9II. Also worth mentioning is that the Micro Four Thirds take 4x3 images, which is very useful if you want to post on both horizontal and vertical platforms. G9II also offers 100 megapixel handheld high resolution mode. It works very well and it is a real deal. It captures a lot of detail and it does so in camera. The speed is one of the main highlights of the G9II. It seems that it can shoot probably 12 frames per second with mechanical shutter and autofocus continuous. More importantly, it can shoot up to 60 frames per second with electronic shutter for 3 seconds. 20 frames per second option is available for longer bursts. As far as I have noticed, it does that without blackout or any other limitations. The buffer seems to be huge as well. That is an incredible speed that rivals cameras with stacked sensor and therefore a huge strength of the G9II. I am happy to report that the same applies to the autofocus. G9II is the first Panasonic Micro Four Thirds camera that uses a face detection autofocus system with 779 face detection points. The single point performance is as good as anything that I've tested. It is extremely fast with flawless accuracy and no hunting. It works really well in low contrast situations and with backlit subjects as well. I have tested a tracking at f2.8 or f5.6 full frame equivalent depth of field, which makes it a bit easier, but it performed flawlessly. I was able to get a perfect hit rate in every run, even at 20 frames per second. Tracking capabilities of the G9II seem to be excellent. The subject detection works great as well. I have once again tested it with various animals and it was able to identify pretty much all of them and focus correctly. Video autofocus is pretty much the same as with the S5 II, and that means that it is excellent. Panasonic was able to get this right and it works great even in the most difficult of my testing scenes, such as this one with the close-up SD card. The subject detection works just as well as in the stills mode. This is by far the best focusing Panasonic Micro Four Thirds camera and a big improvement over the GH6. The other main highlight of the G9II is the in-body image stabilization. It is rated for 8 stops and it is incredibly effective. Static shots are very stable even at pretty long focal lengths. Stabilization with ultra-wide lenses approaches the latest action cameras. A lot of Micro Four Thirds lenses are also optically stabilized and work together with the in-body image stabilization. This combination can go even further and it provides extremely smooth footage at pretty crazy focal lengths approaching 800mm full frame equivalent. The downside is that with effectiveness comes pretty significant lag, which makes the response less predictable. Despite that, I can say that the in-body image stabilization is a huge strength of the G9II and one of the main reasons to consider getting one. Another reason may be the video specifications. There are two main highlights here. The first one is OpenGate 5.8K 4x3 video. OpenGate is a very popular feature nowadays as it is very useful for reframing and using the same footage for both horizontal and vertical platforms. It can shoot OpenGate 5.8K and 5.7K video in 10-bit 420 up to 30p. 4K is available up to 60p with no crop in 10-bit 422 and up to 120p in 10-bit 420. The video is again very good within the limitations of the Micro Four Thirds sensor. The video is fully downsampled with a respectable amount of detail. I would say that this is a good compromise between the versatility of the system and the output quality. All of the advanced video features from the S5 II, such as the Vlog, ProRes, SSD recording, anamorphic capabilities, and so on, are available. I haven't had much time to play with those, so I will talk more about that in the full review. Overall, this is by far the best performing Panasonic Micro Four Thirds video camera that I have tested. The handling is identical to the S5 II, and as I've said in the beginning, I am very happy about that. The grip is sufficiently large and well shaped. Much like with the S5 II, a huge improvement is that it has integrated strap mounts. The controls are simple and logically positioned. It has 3 command dials, dedicated dry mode dial, autofocus mode selector, and sufficient number of well-positioned function buttons. There are also 2 extra function buttons on the front side. The G9II also uses the new 8-directional joystick. The only thing that I miss is the option to have fully separate settings for stills and video, again much like with the S5 II. Other than that, I am very happy with the controls. The menu system is also pretty much carried over from the S5 II. It is a good menu system, very well structured, but the G9II is a very complex camera with a ton of options, so mastering the settings and functions probably will take some time. The quick menu will help a lot as well. The display and the electronic viewfinder are also carried over from the S5 II. The viewfinder uses a well-known 3.69 million dot panel with 0.78 times magnification. It is completely fine to use, sufficiently detailed, and the size is about right. The display uses a 3-inch panel with 1.84 million dots. It is very sharp, bright, and generally pleasant to use. The display is fully rotating. As you probably know, it wouldn't be my first choice, but I understand the decision and I probably prefer it over the bulky hybrid mechanism of the GH6. G9II uses the BLK22 battery that we know from previous Lumix S cameras. As the name suggests, it has 2200 mAh capacity. I don't know the CPA rating, but I was able to get through a typical day of testing on a single battery. The battery life will probably be better than with the S5 II. The most important part of the Micro Four Thirds system are the lenses. I have mainly tested the G9 with 12 to 35mm f2.8 and 100 to 400mm f4 to 6.3. What I like about both of them is that they are not trying to compete with full-frame lenses. They let in less light, and despite their very solid optical qualities, they can't compensate for the massive pixel density advantage of the full frame. And that is completely fine. Their size and weight together with optical image stabilization fits into the overall philosophy of the Micro Four Thirds, which is all about compromise between the output and the versatility. Overall, my first impressions of the G9II are quite positive. First of all, as an S5 II and S5 IIX user, I really like an idea of Micro Four Thirds version of the S5 IIX. It retains a lot of strengths of the S5 IIX. Those are excellent body design, great autofocus, solid display and electronic viewfinder, and so on. The biggest strength of the G9II are the speed and the stabilization. 60 frames per second continuous shooting speed combined with excellent autofocus makes it a very capable camera for fast outdoors action. The in-body image stabilization is one of the best that I've ever tested. Especially the dual stabilization is great. Video specs including OpenGate 5.8K and 4K 120p are great as well. There are some compromises when it comes to the output though. The image quality at the base ISO is significantly improved by lowering the base ISO to 100. The high ISO performance is not a strength of the G9II, and I have to say that the lack of backside illuminated design and dual native ISO doesn't help it either. That is not that big of a deal for Panasonic anymore, because they are happy to sell you an S5 II if you need better ISO performance and overall image quality. On the other hand, if you want a lightweight system mainly for documentary purposes, fast outdoors action, or social media coverage, the G9II will be a very valid option. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.